Hello.
Hello.
This is episode 11 of the Second Button Podcast.
Yes.
I'm Andrew, and with me is...
Brian. Today we're talking about season 2, episode 6 of Seinfeld,
Yes,
The Statue. I think I talked about it at the end of the last episode. This one's great. I like.
It's a good episode.
A lot of the characters kind of fell into, I don't know, they were very, Kramer was very Kramer, and, for his little screen time, which we'll get into it later. But, all of them were just very much themselves in this. And it was like...
The part we will get to near the end, on the DVD, there's little interviews with each one from the cast, except for Jerry, like the 3 other ones. And Michael Richards says this is when Kramer became Kramer. This is when he knew what his character was. This is when he knew what he wanted to do with the character and where he wanted to go forward with the character. So this was his defining Kramer moment. That one scene was like, it's a 30-second scene.
Yeah.
And he said, this is Kramer. So
I'm Kramer.
And you can see it.
Yeah.
That scene when he comes in is like, oh, wow, this is what we know as Kramer. So.
Definitely. He had a little screen time on this one, but it was a good one. But anyways, episode starts off with a stand-up bit. He's talking about those sweepstakes letters that you used to get in the mail.
Yeah. Is that a thing anymore? Do people still do the sweepstakes thing? Is that? I don't know.
There's junk mail for sure, but I don't recall ever getting like sweepstakes mail. I mean, it was...
You may have already won $1 million.
Yeah. That was like,
a thing.
You may have already won something. He talks about like, oh, he's in the top people that they're considering. He's like, oh, okay, just let you guys know I may be, eligible for some prizes or something like that. It's just that it's part of his joke. It's like, is that... I never knew anything about that. That was, I think, before my time.
Yeah, we used to get them in the mail. I remember them coming to the house, and then I'm always thinking, like, why aren't my parents doing this? Like, why are they throwing it in the freaking garbage? They could be rich.
You guys, you're stupid. He's throwing money away.
Idiots. Yeah.
Doy.
$1 million.
God, we could be caviar dreams up in mansions and Rolls Royce.
Dry macaroni here. We could be.
We're getting fucking hamburger helper for dinner. Could be having caviar and lobster.
Without the hamburger.
Yeah. The hamburger helper with it just
the ham. Just the noodles and the spice.
But it's just a can of beans. You just Dennis the Menace like style just underneath the bridge. Yeah. But what was the point of that? Was that was it to just get your information and shit like that? Like banking?
I think so.
Or like
it must have been just so they could...
Or like routing numbers or something. But they already have your email, right? Or your mailing address. I mean...
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose of it was.
And then it's like...
I think some of it too is to sell magazines and stuff. Like if you reply, they're like, okay, that one's interesting. And then they just start sending you more stuff.
Or it's like...
Same as now, if you answer a call from a call center now and you talk to them, then they go, okay, this person will talk to you, and they sell that to a bunch of other call centers, and then they all harass you. So, yeah.
Because I never pick up phone calls ever, really.
No, I used to do it and then fuck with them, but then I started getting more calls, so I stopped fucking with them.
Yeah, that's what I heard people do. It's like, oh yeah, let's just fuck with them, or say some rude things to them, and and until they hang up or whatever. But I was always like, is that a scam? Or they just like they must have gotten people. Yeah, and then nowadays it's more of like spam emails and Ray-Bans ads on people's Facebook pages. Yeah, that's how they dupe people or get their info.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I heard like a podcast where somebody's like, "Oh, I saw an ad for like knockoff Ray-Bans for like $10." So I clicked on it and bought them. It's like, and as soon as I clicked that, I realized, oh my god, I just got screwed.
Yeah.
He's like,
I bought a couple of things off Facebook ads, and I'm like, why did I do that?
And he's like, no,
you can see here. Oh, right there. The little wooden, I guess you can't see that on the video on YouTube, but Brian can see it. It's a little wooden man. Mm-hmm. I bought a guitar pedal off a Facebook ad. I'm like, I'm going to grab that. It's cheap.
Yeah.
And they sent me this little posable wooden man, like the guys in the Backset commercial. And that's what I got in the mail. And
not instead of a pedal?
Instead of a guitar pedal.
What did you, that it? You just...
They sent me that. So I sent an email. And I'm like, I didn't get what I blah, blah, blah. And then they didn't reply. So I sent another email off. I forget who I sent it. Send to someone else. I'm like, well, you paid for it. You got a product. I'm like, it's not the product I ordered.
You got fleeced.
It wasn't much money. But
it was like a
thought I learned my lesson.
Yeah, too good
and
to
then
be
my
true.
friend sent me a message. My friend sent me an ad for Death Star fire pit, and it was like a metal. You piece it all together. It was a Death Star. It was like $40 or something. So and when I was first moving, I thought I'm going to get that fire pit. So I ordered the fire pit, and I got a cheap watch.
What the heck?
I don't know. So I stopped ordering things off. I got I'm the senior citizen getting fleeced by technology I don't understand.
I don't think I've ever had that happen before.
Mhm.
I guess I've had things where I've had like weird like things with like PayPal where it's like it blocks payments or whatever on thing. I was like buying anime stickers or whatever, and then it kept blocking it, and then I'm like I'm like, okay, and then I couldn't tell like what got refunded back and forth so many times, and I had to like basically write it down. I'm like, okay, this got here, and then went canceled, and then back and forth. And I'm like, okay, I just ended up not buying it.
You got for some reason on the wall with the pins and the yellow thread,
something like that. It was like 7 or 8 different transactions. It was like on a day. It was like a Black Friday kind of thing. So maybe they probably thought it was like a scam. But I'm like, no, I obviously tried to buy these. And it's like, I didn't get my anime stickers, which actually would probably was for the best. I mean, you spend my money on that dumb shit.
You probably have others, do you?
I have a drawer full of them that I don't know where to stick.
Yeah. There you go.
Need to get a cooler ride, and maybe I'll cover it with those. Just anime decal, the full anime decal.
Put them all over the bed of your truck.
Yeah. But anyways, so it ends with that ad and goes into Jerry's apartment, where Jerry and Kramer are bringing in a big old box of shit into the the main room there on the dining table, and then George is just
helps define George. He's just laying on the couch, so he was there when they went downstairs to get it. And he just stayed on the couch the whole time.
Just sitting
on
the sofa. He didn't
go open doors for them, hit the elevator button. He just hung out on the sofa.
Yeah, on the sofa reading newspaper, and then he just like, I can't help my neck, my neck, and then so it goes on to like say like what the box was. It was belonged to Jerry's grandfather before he passed, and it's been sitting in his in his basement for 3 years, and then that's weird because I'm like, there's a basement in the apartment complex?
Is it? I know, like around here for sure, the underground parking will also have like little storage areas behind where the cars are, like little fenced-in areas, and that's your kind of storage area. But so I don't know if New York would have underground parking in those older buildings, so maybe they did have just kind of storage in the basement for them.
I think in a later episode or in the next one, they talk about like there's a washer dryer machine in the basement, so I'm wondering if it's like a common area. But the fact that he could store a big box like that, and it says Seinfeld on it, the fact that I'm like, I don't know, it was a detail that I'm like, I just didn't get, and I'm just like, what? I'm fixated. What doesn't make sense?
But ask Jerry Seinfeld on Twitter,
because it also was a thing too. It's like I was like, well, maybe it was in the grandparents' house in the basement. And maybe the grandfather passed and his grandmother was still alive. But I'm like, he says that like, oh, it's been in there for 3 years. I totally forgot about it until he saw it and was interested. He points to Kramer. So Kramer saw it. So that means it had to have been in the basement of the apartment. So anyways, the weird little thing for me.
Anyone that lives in New York is listening to this. Let us know about your basement.
If you live in, does he live in, I think was it Manhattan that he lives in?
Yeah.
It's not Brooklyn. But if you know about those, So he said, like, oh, he doesn't want any of this stuff in there, and neither does his parents, but he feels kind of weird about just throwing it away. His parents are like, just get rid of it, whatever. It's just a bunch of, grandpa clothes is what it was.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of his old stuff. So, he leaves it on the table. Kramer's going through it, and he's like, oh, I got these socks. You don't want these socks, right? I don't think Jerry wants anything in there. But Jerry goes and just makes a comment about, it's like he wants to get his apartment all cleaned. Yeah. That's where, George mentions, like, oh, I have a friend, trustworthy, really honest person, da-da-da-da-da. So they kind of throw that in the beginning because, anyways, surprised George didn't bring that up. If you would have went with my friend.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was going to come back around and George was going to.
Yeah, just like
guilt trip Jerry at the end.
Told you so.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But anyways, he's like, oh, I have a friend. And he's like, no. Elaine has a friend, writer friend, Rava, and she's from Finland. They make sure to make that point. And her boyfriend, who's in college, is going to do it. He goes to Columbia. And then George, he says, students can't clean. It's like, it's anathema. Anathema? I think that's what he says.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then like, it's a pause right there. And then Jerry's like, they don't like it.
Yeah.
He's like, how long you been waiting on that to throw it into a conversation? Yeah. But I am totally with George on that. I love just using words I just learned to like sound smart.
Yeah. You're holding on. You're like, someone say something where I can stick this in the conversation.
Oh, and then I'll use the shit out of it, and then I'll quickly dumb it down for him what it means. But it's just like analogous, or like aforementioned. I've been using those. Like, I mean, aforementioned. I've used that probably the past like maybe 2, especially when you're writing emails or whatever.
Yeah,
like use that
thus as aforementioned.
Yeah, and then analogous is something that's like comparable to. You could just say that.
Yeah.
But I like saying analogous. And then, but with those, I'm like, when you're trying to do shit like that, you got to be careful because it's a quick way to sound like a stupid fucking idiot if you're using the word wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's an easy one that I've heard so many times is penultimate.
Yes. You hear it all the time, and it seems to be used different every time you hear it.
That does not mean ultimate. So like the top ultimate, but it's not one level above ultimate.
No.
That's the like second to last, or like the not the ultimate, the one before it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so people always use it, and then my co-host, he's like, oh, he was texting with me. I'm like, I understand what you meant, but just so you know, penultimate doesn't mean ultimate. It means second to last, or the next one before the ultimate. And he's like, oh shit, really? I don't know. I was trying to make a point.
You're like, this thing here is second best.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So a podcast I listen to is called The Tasteless Gentleman, and Bradley, one of the hosts of the show, he has used that penultimate. It's like, oh, it's the so and so thinks it's the penultimate, but whatever. And then nobody has ever corrected him or ever pointed it out. And he's one of the hosts of the show that's like, went to school, I think, for writing. He's well spoken, well read, and then he's like, that's something he always kind of brings out there. Whereas some of the other guys are just like, I'm fucking stupid, I don't care. Like one of the guys is like, yeah, I don't care. Like I'm a DJ and I drive a fast car. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I play video games. What up? And whereas he's like kind of will say that, and so he says penultimate a bunch of times. And then on his Instagram, I think he had like a Q&A kind of thing or whatever, or he did like Instagram Live, and then he made a point to say, I didn't know that I have been using penultimate wrong for over almost 10 years.
Oh,
since 2014, and nobody's called me out on it. It's like, I feel like a big old dingus. It's like I feel like a dipshit. And I'm like,
yeah.
And even me, I follow him on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I always was going back to those older episodes, and every time you said it, I was like, nobody said anything, huh? And he still is gonna use okay. And I'm like, yeah, and you didn't ever learn. He's like, well, I know now, starting in 2021, I'm never saying that like that again. It was funny. But I've also said, like, on my podcast, The Tone Jerks, I think earlier, or like, I don't know. I don't remember when it was. It was pretty early on in the podcast. I couldn't remember what episode it was. I said running the gambit instead of running the gamut. Mm-hmm. And almost like
everyone says gambit.
Immediately I got called out, Gambit, Brian, Gambit, on our Facebook group. I'm like, I wake up to like, oh, I guess I'm just a fucking idiot. Damn it. And ever since then, I'm like, I pretty much don't use that phrase anymore, or I'll say, I make sure it's Gambit.
Yeah.
Just a listener pointed it out real quick that I'm just a fucking idiot. I'm like, well, there's going to be more dumb shit like that. So
yeah, it's going to happen. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Or if I'm writing down, I try and, like, if I'm using a word that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm like, okay, I'll try and look up what it means.
Yeah.
So I can use it, and then it becomes part of your vernacular.
If you're writing, you have more time to check.
Yeah.
You're not just
Yeah.
in a conversation. Hold on a second. I got to look this word up.
Yeah. Anyways, that was just like a funny thing that he's like, they don't like it.
Yeah.
But it goes, kind of like focuses back. Kramer pulls out a statue of a woman in a blue dress, and then he's like, now this I like. And the focus goes back onto Kramer in the box.
And this is after he loots the outfit. He looted an outfit of Grandpa's clothes that will come
not yet. He's still going through it. But at that point, that's when it gets George's attention.
Yes, yeah.
That he's like, George stands up and he's like, he tells him about how his parents had a statue like that back when he was like 10. And he was, on the mantle or whatever. He took it down and he was using it like a microphone. And he was singing MacArthur Park from Richard Harris. And it slipped out of his hands. And
seems like an odd thing to throw in there, like to say what he was singing.
Yeah. Right? And I was unfamiliar with that song. So just today I looked it up and was listening to it. That song sucks dick. It's not a good song. It's not like, super catchy or whatever. It's like, I'm like, this is just dragging on. I'm like, where's that line? It's like, I'll never have this, like recipe again, is when he threw the mic, dropped the mic essentially and smashed the statue. And so I was looking for that part and I was like, oh my God, it's a 6 or 7 minute long song and it just drags on. But I think it's funny that they put that detail in that a young George Costanza would listen to this, this like,
and sing along the whole time.
This falsetto kind of singing, and then it goes into like this random, like just really drawn out, like sappy lyrics. And the fact that like that's what he was singing to as a boy. Just for shits, I decided to like look up that song. But yeah, so he drops the statue, and then his parents were like pissed, and I guess they still bring it up today. It's like, it was the single most damaging experience of my life. Aside from seeing my father naked. So George has a connection with this statue that was in the box. I think they all wrote, everyone except for Kramer wrote it off as like, that is a box of junk sitting on that table. Anyways, let's talk about whatever. And then but anyways,
do you ever break something at your house and try to hide it from your parents and got in shit for it?
I'm trying to think of.
And when we were younger, we had a stained glass window right by the stair. Like going up the stairs, there's a window there, and we were playing with the ball in the house. And I don't know if I kicked it or my brother kicked it, but I remember the ball going up and out the window, smashed the window, and all the glass went outside, landed on the ground. Yeah. And then my parents got home, like, what happened to the window? I'm like, I saw someone with a BB gun and they must have shot the window out. Like, I was so scared to get in trouble. So I blamed it on some hoodlum with a BB gun. In my small neighborhood, we knew everyone in the neighborhood. And I'm sure my parents were like, how the fuck did the glass get on the ground outside then, asshole? Because
they didn't believe it, right? Oh, wow. Okay. They just was like,
I think they just didn't feel like arguing with me about it. So they just kind of let it go. Like, and then
we didn't like that window anyways.
Yeah. So they ended up getting they took a piece of it and got it cut in a circle and then put a frame in it. I think my mom still has it hanging in the kitchen window. So I got a different house. Like, she just kept that one piece of glass. It's probably a reminder, like, you listen here, kid. I know you're lying to me. So
yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't think we really ruined a lot of parents' stuff. I know. Yeah. Because I'm like, I think the house that we lived in was pretty small. Like, nowadays, as a kid, I remember it being like huge. It was just like a 2-bedroom house that parents rented. And then trying to think of that. Yeah, nothing really comes to mind with this story. I'm like, there had to be something relatable, but no, not really.
No.
I think one time it's kind of, no, I guess I was roughhousing a little bit with like my sisters and I were like, I think throwing things, like, yeah, definitely like playing like ball in the house, like that Brady Bunch thing, and then kind of went to go catch something and bumped into the wall that was at my parents' house that they had bought, and then we're renovating, just put up drywall. This is a good one. Yeah. Big old dent in that wall. Kind of where an outlet would be. And I'm like, it's just like, like the frame of, where the light switch would be. The the plates weren't on yet, and I kind of like leaned into it, and then I'm like, I was kind of a fat kid too, and so just like this big old fat kid bumping into the wall and just like cracked it around it. And I'm like, and I'm like, they had just like put up the drywall, and I'm like, damn. And then I'm like, if we just don't say anything, he won't notice. He totally noticed. He was pissed.
Yeah.
He basically just redid it, or not the drywall, but
yeah.
just like, okay, we're just gonna fill it in. We're just gonna fill it in. Fuck it.
Yeah.
But it was just like, as a kid, I'm like, and then the always the thing was like, just don't tell them. Parents are never gonna know.
If you don't say anything, you're not lying.
Yeah. It's like, what happened? Yeah. So it wasn't even like a thing. It was the wall.
Yeah.
But I think because it was in the process of the house was getting, touched up anyways. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I think they weren't as pissed. He's just like, Jesus Christ. You need to tell me things like this kind of thing.
Before the paint.
I'm like, I didn't even notice. Anyway, so after the whole story about that, George definitely wants that statue. Kramer already said that he liked it. So the boys, they're fighting over it.
Yeah.
And then Jerry breaks it up. He's like, okay, we need to settle this like adults. It's like, to settle this, they decide a game. Potato Man. And I'm like, no, not Potato Man, not Potato Man. It's like Ink-a-Dink. And this, they go back and forth. That little, it's like Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Moe.
Yeah.
Ink-a-Dink, a bottling,
Yeah.
Never heard of that. And
No,
after the
that's the
show,
one we
still
used.
haven't heard it.
That's the one we used, yeah.
And you stink.
And
Yeah, I don't even remember the whole thing, but it's pretty good. And then George ends up being at the end, says, and you are it. And then it's like, oh, George is it. That means he loses. I'm like, he's like, no, George is it, and it's good. So that means he gets a statue. And then Kramer, he wins the statue, and Kramer just begrudgingly tosses it. It's like, okay, fine, here you go, and throws the statue that like has broken. The whole point that he wants is because George broke it. He's like, okay, don't break this fucking. He just kind of, yeah, fine, whatever. Here you go.
Yeah, just chucks her.
So chucks it across. And then Kramer is going through the box, and he's like, oh look, he's like, well, I'm gonna take the suit, I'm gonna take the shoes and the hat. He puts the hat on. He's like, hey, I look like Joe Friday. Boom, ba-dum, boom. Anyway, so they're gonna go out. I can't remember if they said were they gonna go out to a movie, going out to eat, or something like that.
I don't know where they're gonna go. They're just heading out.
They're heading out.
I think he just says, "Let's go." Yeah, come on, let's go, and that's it. So.
Yeah. So, George, he sets down the statue in the kitchen because he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna carry it all night." And then it's like, "Well, Kramer, what about your stuff?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So he rolls all his like the suit and pants and shoes into a ball, and then like his apartment doors open. So he's standing from Jerry's apartment, just chucks it into his
He's like the strong man with the ball. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah,
put the ball on the shoulder, spin around.
Yeah, shot put. Yeah, put, kind of like in across the hallway into his apartment. You can hear like sound effects of broken glass and shit, just like sound like a metal pail falling over or something like that. Surprised you didn't hear like a cat.
Reason.
Yeah, he just throws it across. And then they're leaving. So Kramer's done, and then as they're leaving the apartment, he's like, Jerry says to George, like, you owe me one. It's like, because you were it. It's like, no, I thought it was good. It's like, no, it's terrible. It's bad.
It's bad. Very bad.
So a scene ends, and then they're back at Jerry's apartment, and Elaine is there with her friend Rava, the writer that they had mentioned earlier. So she's in Jerry's apartment, and she's smoking in Jerry's apartment.
I found
a couple things with that scene.
I was like, would you like Jerry's obviously a very clean person, and he doesn't smoke, and she's just sitting there smoking in his apartment. It's like it's a normal thing to do.
Yeah,
which I don't think that was a normal thing to do.
Well,
and if you're in a non-smoker's house, you just don't have a cigarette in their house. It's just a thing. So
exactly, like it's super disrespectful. Is the thing? It's like I don't smoke, but if I did, I don't think I think I would want to do it outside. I wouldn't ever do it inside the house.
Yeah, and I come across a lot of inside smokers when I'm working, and I get a headache within 5 minutes of being inside their house. It just stays. It does not air out, man.
Or like people who smoke in their car. You can definitely tell a smoker's car. You're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember a friend growing up, his dad smoked on his car. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
It's like
and
this.
you see people smoking in their car with their windows up. I'm like, at least put your window down, hang your hand out. But no, just windows up, smoking in the car. Just stinking everything up.
Smoking it. Yeah. But yeah, I my bandmates, they smoke weed, and they don't do it in their house. Like my drummer will go over to his place and he's like, oh, he's gonna smoke, and so same thing with the guitarist, and then they go outside to smoke because he's like, yeah, I don't want that in my house. I think it's maybe just
doesn't air out.
Yeah. And that's weed, let alone cigarettes. But it could be that's a difference of 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And then also it could be also a California thing. But I'm like, there's no places in California that you can smoke inside, except for some casinos.
Yeah, I think they even took it away from the casinos here, maybe.
I know there's smoking and non-smoking sections of the casino here in California, at least, or San Diego. And then, but yeah, that's one thing that has drastically changed in this time, from like what 1990 was this done?
90 or 91. Yeah, I think this one was 90. Yeah.
But yeah, and then another thing too, it's like, why is Elaine and why are Elaine and Rava in Jerry's apartment?
Yeah, her boyfriend was coming to clean the
I'm
apartment, but it made no sense. Like, if they were there to meet him to let him in, but Jerry was waiting for him to show up before Jerry left, so I don't know why.
Yeah,
they were there.
And then I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, Jerry's getting ready to go to the airport, and he's kind of waiting on her boyfriend Ray, and maybe Elaine's taking him to the airport.
Maybe,
but
that would make sense.
Why did she bring Rava, the writer friend? So
maybe they're trying to schedule work time, and that was the only time they could fit in. I don't know. It seemed odd, though.
I don't know, because it goes on to like where Elaine's gonna be editing her book.
Yeah,
coming up, Rava or whatever, on the publishing company that she works for.
Yeah.
But again, why would they be at Jerry's?
Yeah.
it was like a thing. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense if you really think about it. I'm like, there's no point in them being there. And it just
I feel
makes
like
me
they're
like
in the writer's room and they couldn't find
kid.
a good way to introduce this character, so they said, let's just put her in this scene. They just
or they're just like, yeah, no, or whoever wrote it, it's like, yeah, no, that's fine. That makes sense. It's just like very what the Simpsons itchy and scratchy kid who was a fan is like, oh boy, I hope somebody got fired over that blunder. Like just me going over it. But anyways, so the boyfriend, he's late, so Jerry's like kind of like, you can tell him he's probably like, I need to go, and where's this guy? And then he said like, oh, your boyfriend's late, and then it's like, oh, it could be traffic or whatever, Elaine says, and then Rava says like, oh, maybe he's dead.
Just
very,
so
like
nonchalant,
just like comment that's like, I don't know if that was supposed to be funny or what. And then Jerry makes the joke. It's like, oh, so are you a writer of children's books, I assume? Just that level of sarcasm or whatever she has.
Yeah.
The dude shows up, and then he is like way too enthused to clean the apartment. The way he is, it's very theatrical of how he's going about things.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
Jerry, Lord of the
Manor. Shine, blah, 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 blah. Lord of the Manor, yeah. The king of comedy or whatever he is. And then Jerry's like, okay, yeah. The toilet brush is under the sink. Okay. And then he's like, very like, okay. Jerry's not too impressed with the enthusiasm. He's like, okay, yep, I gotta go. So, and then it goes to stand-up bit about maids and people cleaning your place, like how uncomfortable it is. And I don't think I've ever had or would ever really have somebody clean my shit for me.
I had a friend that had someone come in once a week and she cleaned, like did the floors kind of thing, but cleaning the whole house, it just seems like that's my stuff. Leave it alone. Right? Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difference. I guess it could also be said for like yard work or maintenance, having a gardener or stuff like that. That's something you could do if you were a homeowner, but it's also something that's like, damn, the house one is like definitely something that you could do and you really should do.
Yeah.
Like even if it was like, it's only $60 a month. What's a big deal? Like it's also like, come on, just clean your fucking house. It's like, do I don't know, do your own mopping or whatever. Yeah. And then he's talking about like, having the maid cleaning while you're there and you're watching TV. And it's like, I could have done that, but
yeah,
that's what I'm paying you for, kind of thing.
And just said
if I was a maid,
going after people like, you couldn't do this, you couldn't dust.
Exactly. You'd be like, giving them like, this was too much for you. This dusting was too much. Cleaning. And then it makes me think of like, you probably, because I've never done it before, you probably would want to be there at the house while somebody's cleaning, right?
I would think.
And Jerry left Ray at his apartment. So it was like.
And he's going out of
town.
I'm he's on the way to the airport, so.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Ray does he lock up and leave and just make sure like, I totally locked your apartment. I've just met you now. I'm alone in your place. I'll clean up, definitely in a time before like, surveillance cameras and like, what is like the what are those
teddy bears
cameras that go to your phone, security cam. Yeah. What can't remember what that is, but people have them throughout their house. I know my sister, her and her husband, he's got that shit everywhere in his house. I was like, okay, well, it was secured. But that was definitely before that time, so it's not like you could
on camera.
Yeah. just go to town. But Jerry like trusted him to clean the apartment and be there, and then lock up. It just kind of like, I know there's not so much continuity in the show, but it's like season 1 when he got his apartment broken into and Elaine was there. And like he's like, here's somebody else. Yep, lock up when you're done. I'll be back in a week.
Let a stranger take care of it.
Yeah. But it's like a thing. I'm like, I can clean, so I don't need to have a maid. Like a couple weeks ago or whatever, I cleaned my bathroom and really did a deep clean on my shower. It's fucking disgusting, by the way, but now it's clean.
Yeah.
Hey, a sense of accomplishment, I think, a little bit. You get some. It's like maybe a little. Not it is kind of lame, but I'm like, it's got a clean shower. I did that, and I'm gonna try and keep it clean.
The shower. It's nice and clean. Like, it's gonna stay clean this time. The month later, like I should have kept it clean.
One thing that I've done is I got a squeegee, so I'm gonna try and squeegee the shower every time I use it. So
we have one for our glass. We have a glass door, so we squeegee the glass door off, so at least you don't get those big, caked on water stains.
Exactly. But that aside, back at Jerry's apartment, he's there with Elaine. He's showing, how well Ray cleaned the place. He's so excited. It's like, he even cleaned between the, the fridge and the counter. It's like, how that 1-inch space? How did he get in there? He must be like Rubber Man.
There's no Rubber Man.
Why did I think there was a Rubber Man? He's like Rubber Man. Yeah. So he's
uncoagulated the top of the dishwashing liquid.
Yeah. He cleaned the little egg cups in the fridge. There's a little thing too. It's like I just noticed. I'm like, he's got like pictures on his fridge, like old pictures. I'm like of kids. Like it looks like they're dated back then. I'm like, are those pictures of himself?
I didn't notice that, but yeah.
If you see that, like when it kind of goes up to him, like it's pictures of like a couple kids. I'm like, and they're old looking for even back then. I'm like, was that picture of Jerry when he was a kid? I'm like, what's with those pictures?
Yeah,
it was Later on, I think he has Superman and shit like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he is, he's talking to Elaine, and Elaine says like, "Oh, I got to go to Rava's and pick up her, her book, the manuscript."
The manuscript, yeah.
And then Jerry's like, "Oh, I'll come with you." Another one that is weird. Why did he go?
Yeah, just for the story, just to fit it in there.
It makes no sense. He was already at his place. It's not like I'm like, oh, well, Elaine's gonna give me a ride to this person's place, then back to my house.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
This one has some loopholes into it. It's just for the plot, I understand, but I'm like, why? Why? Tell me.
Yeah.
So
Explain it all.
anyway, so they go. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. There's no reason for him to go.
Yeah. There's no.
And there was no reason for Rava to be there in the first fucking place. But
Yeah.
for the story, I know. So, they are in Rava's apartment, and they're talking about, you know, how since Elaine is going to edit the book, you know, Elaine could get promoted to be editor, and then because it was Rava's demand that she edit the book, and then so she's obviously stoked on her friendship or whatever and relationship that she has with this writer Rava, and then they're kind of sitting there, and then Ray comes in. You can see visibly like. He just saw a ghost or something. He's like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. He's
There's people here. But then he...
Yeah.
Exactly. He quickly kind of changes his attitude, and then he goes into that same theatrical character. It's like, oh, what a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
It's like he's totally acting. Like, that's not like a normal person at all.
No.
And then, yeah. So he was like happy that they're there now. So Ray and Rava, they leave the scene because they're going to go make tea for everyone. And
after Jerry says,
that's when Jerry spots
somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Shouldn't you be on a ledge somewhere?
What was that? Wasn't he just going on about like, oh, he doesn't clean a house, he makes it like
that's a ritual, a ceremony, celebration. Mm-hmm. Yeah. and
he's going on and just like very, very passionate about just cleaning an apartment. And that's when Jerry's like, oh, shouldn't you be on a ledge somewhere? And then they move on to like, oh, we're going to get tea. And that's when Jerry spots something. His little eye sees that statue from earlier. The statue of the woman in the blue dress that, you know, got from his grandfather's box of crap. And the one that he gave to George. And that's when, you know, they're going back and forth. Like, that's the statue. You know, like him and Elaine in the, living room apartment. He's like, I never knew a statue. I had a statue. It was my grandpa. It's like he stole it. It's like, are you sure? So Elaine's like doesn't want to jeopardize the thing that she has with Rava because it could be good for her work.
Yeah, she's defending Ray, so Jerry's it doesn't affect her. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then Jerry's like, this fucking dude stole shit from my house, and so it's like you know, this was in my house and now it's here in this guy's house after he was the only person in my apartment. Like, it's just like he's saying it's like this guy ripped me off.
Yeah.
And Lane doesn't believe him or want to, really. And then so he's okay. He's gonna call Kramer. And then Kramer, you only hear Jerry's side of the conversation, but you could just Kramer very suspicious, like, Kramer, it's Jerry. Jerry who? Jerry Seinfeld. Where are you? Doesn't matter where I am. It's like
Jerry from across the hall.
Just like shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry, your neighbor from across the hall. It's like what other Jerry Seinfelds do you know? But as he's trying to call, Rava comes in and then she comes back with her manuscript. Oh wait, no, there was this one little thing where it's like Rava and Ray leave this scene initially, to go get the tea, but Rava's going to go get her manuscript and Ray is going to get the tea. And then he's like, "Oh, Ray, I'm going to go get my manuscript. Can you go, get the tea?" Because they hear the tea kettle going. And then Ray breaks his like theatrical character. He's like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
And so that one little part, that's when he leaves the scene.
Yeah. Wasn't the happy guy for a bit.
Anyway, so yeah, he just like he doesn't have that like character anymore. He's just like, "Yeah, all right."
Yeah.
So I forgot to mention that. That was pretty funny. Just like you could tell this guy it's just a put on, this fucking act, or the character, charming character that he's doing. Yeah. Anyway, so she comes back with the manuscript, and then that's when Jerry hangs up the phone and tries to cover up and saying that he was just calling his mom to make French toast, like some stupid line. It's like not. It's like
his mom forgot how to make French toast. You just put the bread in the batter, then you put it in the pan.
Yeah. And then something like that was another thing that you wouldn't really have a problem with today, because you would just text like, "Kramer, is the statue in my apartment still?"
Yeah.
And then Kramer's like, "No, it's not here," or like, "Yeah, it's here." And then anyways, so And then Ray comes in with the pastries, and then Jerry is very like that. He's like, that's my statue. That guy has it, and then Jerry's upset, and so he makes up some shit that they have to leave. I think he says he's getting a facial or something like that.
Something random.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, you had to leave so soon, Jerry. We should get dinner." He's like, "No dinner. Dinner's for suckers." As he's putting on his jacket in the store, leaving.
Weird thing to say.
Like,
I'm not hungry. It's dinner for suckers.
Yeah. Like, he got ripped off. He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna happen again, dickhead." Anyway, so now it goes back to Jerry's apartment, and he's getting off the phone with the police. He's saying that they can't do shit about it because it's his word against Ray's. He's like, "Okay," and Kramer's right away. He's like, "Let's go get him."
He's just
all four of them were there, and that's Kramer's like, "All right." I like how Kramer, he's not really that invested in this at all, but he's got Jerry's back to like the fullest degree. He's like ride or die friend no matter what.
He's like, I'm going to kick that guy's ass. Like, you don't got to kick his ass. He just bumped into me accidentally. He's like, I'm going to kick his fucking ass.
Like, let's go get him. He's like, you ready? It's like, let's go fuck this guy up. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
But Kramer's just, he's ready to go. He's like, yep, let's do it on your word. And then, they're all upset, but it's like Jerry kind of goes into this thing. I was like, of all things to take, he's like, I have my watch, my tape recorder, etc. And he was the only person in the apartment, and he takes, that like one thing. It's like, it's crazy. So it's like, what a weird, this guy, you're the only one there, and now it's in your apartment. I'm like, what did you think you'd get away with it or something?
But looking at that guy's apartment, they had stuff everywhere. They just had. Like, crap. The walls were covered in things, and the shelves were covered in things, and there's like, we're looking at houses before we moved a year ago, we looked at pictures of one house, and it was like, you guys got Home Sense, I assume, do you? Winners, you have Winners, right?
Yeah.
So it looked like a Winners showroom. This house, there was just crap everywhere. It was really clean, but they had like 17 clocks in one room, and that's what this guy's house looked like. So. He would steal the statue because
he just wants more stuff. Yeah.
He just crap.
Yeah. It was like, It's just like, oh, I just need that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Was it like the crabs that take anything that's shiny? Like, oh, I need that. Yeah. Thanks. Just and walk away with it. It's mine now. Yeah. But yeah. So he he's like, Lane's just saying like, oh, if he's crazy, just forget about it. And then George, he's like, I can't forget about it. It's like I already called my my parents, and it's like, expect a surprise of a lifetime. It's like, my mom's making her special roast potatoes, and then Elaine wants him to drop it. It's like, because their job is kind of on the line. It's like, it's a better job of editing like a young up and comers novel at her is it Pendant Publishing? I'm gonna hate. I can't say that. Yeah. So it's like, it's a better job than what she's been doing. So it's like, it's a great opportunity for it. It's like, just let it go. And then, Jerry's like, okay, I'm going to call him. So he calls Ray and suggests, and then Ray suggests that they stop talking about the statue and just meet up in person to talk about it. And so they're, because he doesn't want to talk about it on the phone, Rava might hear. And then Elaine, again, he's like, just whatever. What if he cares if he stole it or not? Just because she's still like, that could just rock the boat, baby. Yeah. And she does not want that. So she's like, just guys, forget about it. And George and Jerry just stare at her. No. They both say no, they can't. Jerry can't let it go because it's like, because of like the principle of the thing. And then it's funny too. During that scene, several times, I think it's 3 times total, Kramer says, "Let's just go get him. Let's get him." Like he didn't drop it. He pops it in every couple. Like,
I actually wrote
breaks.
that down on my notes. It was like, "Let's go get him. You want to go get him? I say we go get him." He just kept interjecting, and then he wants to go get him.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He's ready to get this fucking bastard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they meet up at Monk's, and George, he's in like a booth just right next to Jerry. So Jerry is in a booth, and then they're back to back pretty much.
Yeah.
Because George ain't gonna let this slide. George is gonna be backup.
Yeah.
So he's waiting for Ray, and then he's like, "This guy, I thought you said 1 o'clock." He's like, "He's late. That's his MO."
Yeah, because he's late to clean the house too.
Yeah, it's like that's like as a criminal, that's his MO.
Yeah.
Just to be late. But Ray comes in, he sits down at Jerry's booth, and then like Jerry, saying like, "Oh, about the statue." He's like, "Don't worry, just return the statue, and we'll be okay with it." And then Ray just plays dumb, like he has no idea what he's talking about. And then George is listening, because he's back to back with Jerry.
They do this
just
a few
listening
times
in.
throughout the series where they kind of go to a restaurant. One of them kind of sits back to back as backup.
Yeah, but George is just having comments about the conversation the whole time, which is he's got some good ones in there.
Yeah, up until Jerry elbows him.
Yeah, but he's listening in and making comments, and then when they get to the statue, he says he got it at a pawn shop, and with Ray says that he got the statue at a pawn shop with the money that he was using to clean, from cleaning people's apartments. I totally jumbled that up, but and then George says, "Yeah, cleaning them out," and that's when Jerry bumps him.
Yeah.
So, and then Ray's getting upset, so he tries to deflect and derail, and say that Jerry's jealous of him and Rava and their relationship. It's like, you want her, don't you? It's like, no, Rava, she's a little too cheery for me.
Yeah.
So the fact that he derails it like that hard left, it's like, okay. So he's like, what does he say? Oh, he offers to take Jerry to the pawn shop where he got it, but of course they've since closed and the owner has moved to Singapore. He doesn't have the receipt, and it'd be too much of a hassle to get it. I was like,
yeah.
And George is like, Singapore? You listening to this guy? And that's when George loses it.
Yeah.
And then he just tells the guys, you stole it. Just admit you stole it. And he's all like standing up and yelling at the guys like, I'm the judge and the jury, pal. You're guilty. And
I used the same word in mine. I was
like,
this is where George loses it. Because you just picture like, George is losing it.
Yeah, he just spazzes on this guy, just bebopping, scatting all over him.
Yeah.
But George also, says, he looked up the guy and accuses him of lying about going to Columbia and being a student there.
Yeah.
he's just talking all big and literally talking down to the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked you up. And then he's like I said, he's literally talking down to the guy. And then Ray gets pissed and he stands up and he just towers over George. He's like, you're starting to make me angry. And then George just slinks away and he sits back down at the booth with his back towards him.
First he says it's bound to happen, and then he slinks away.
Oh, yeah. It's like he just instantly he crumples. He's like, all right, well, did all I could. Yeah. And he literally sits down with his back, and it's a really great little detail. It's like, anyway, so Ray leaves. He's like, if you have anything else to say, you know how to contact me. And then Jerry stops him. He's like, how did you clean that little dish soap bottle, the nozzle? It was like a new bottle. So you can tell Jerry's not really that invested in that statue.
No, Jerry didn't care about the statue. It's just in a box he's going to get rid of. George.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's like kind of the principle, though.
Yeah.
George really, really wants it. Jerry's like, okay, guy stole from me. Okay. You just feel like, like betrayed a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Jerry's like, all right, I guess I'm getting over it. And then the scene ends. It goes to an office building, and Elaine and Rava are waiting for an elevator. Rava's smoking inside still. And then there's they get into the elevator, and then there's a clear no smoking sign.
Yes, I noticed
especially
that. And I was writing
in an
it down.
elevator.
Where I was watching Ashley, she pointed it out. She's like, "There's no smoking sign." I was like, "Finally, someone's going to say something with this smoking problem." So.
Yeah, it's not because I was young enough, but I remember that being a big deal in California when that started being a thing where it's like no smoking inside.
Yeah,
which totally makes sense. Now it's like
it was like around 2000, 2001, I think, here where it became like restaurants. Late 90s got the smoking area, no smoking area, and stuff, but then it became more prominent in the early 2000s that it was like no smoking anywhere. So.
Yeah.
But an elevator seems like somewhere you should never smoke. It just seems dumb.
Yeah, but she's just smoking or whatever. So she was mentioning how Ray is upset about the whole situation, all the accusations, from Jerry of stealing. And then Elaine, she's like, I'm staying out of it. And then the door for the elevator closes, and then it opens again. And now they're arguing. So just that little cut, and that's how quickly now they're arguing.
Yeah.
Elaine says, I'm staying out of it.
Yeah.
And she couldn't shut up about it. You know, Elaine probably it's like foot in my mouth. She's like, no, I gotta speak I gotta say my truth. So she immediately just starts saying about it. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, you gotta see it's a coincidence and the circumstantial evidence, and and then somebody like complains about the cigarette. It's like, oh, can you put out that cigarette to Rava, and then she doesn't even acknowledge it. And they talk about how it's a coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Big coincidence. Look at that. Every time I hear someone say the word coincidence, I think in my head, there's no big coincidences and little coincidences, just coincidences. And it's still in my head
coincidences
from when I was a kid.
And then she's yelling at everybody. She's yelling at everybody. What do you think? There's no big. Everybody in the elevator. Nope. Everybody's just like not talking to her. Like
not having it.
The argument of big or small coincidences. And then that guy tells her to put out the cigarette again. And then now, because Rava's pissed, she kind of lashes out at the guy. She's like, "Oh, how about I put it out in your face?" And then she jumps to accusing Elaine of being jealous of their love and their relationship with her and Ray. And then Elaine's now pissed, and so she exits she's alone in the elevator.
Yeah,
which the whole elevator full of people. It's like now she's the last one in there. Like, where did Rava go?
She must have.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. another thing for me, I'm just poking holes in all of it. But anyway, so Elaine, she leaves the elevator and then just like dramatically throws the manuscript in the janitor's trash.
Yeah.
So now it goes back to Jerry's, and George is telling his mom on the phone about the statue getting stolen. She's like, she's all upset. She's like, "No, Mom, it wasn't my fault this time. It got stolen. I don't see how this should affect the potatoes." He's just
still make me the potato.
Whiny. He's just such a whiny dude. Anyways, he's like, she doesn't, react to disappointment very well.
Yeah,
talking about his mother, which I don't think we've seen her yet, right? If I recall,
No.
we haven't seen George. Yeah, no, she's a great character.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, George is upset. Elaine is now upset because she goes on to tell about her job. She's like, oh, now, or, she's like kind of building up in that scene. She's just pouring chocolate syrup into, Breyer's ice cream, and she's eating out of the carton. She's like, what about me? And what I have to do? She's telling about work, how she got like demoted, essentially. She had the opportunity to, edit first novel of up-and-coming young talent or whatever, and then now she's proofreading a food allergy cookbook.
Yeah, and Elaine offers to throw Molotov cocktails into their window. So
yeah,
she's on board with Kramer. She wants to go get him.
Yeah, so they're all upset, and she's like visibly just eating her sorrows.
Yeah,
and then Jerry's like, well, I mean, yeah, about Elaine's job. It's like, well, why don't you just talk to your boss about it? And she's like, well, she's like, I did. And he loves Rava. He loves Ray. He doesn't think you're very funny at all. He loves Rava. He loves Ray. I like that part. She doesn't think you're very funny at all. Like, she probably explained the whole situation about the statue and how he stole it or whatever. It's like, yeah, who cares? I don't like Jerry.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're all like upset because there's just no justice or whatever. And Kramer's he's unhappy about it. So it kind of ends with that.
Yeah.
So and it goes to Rava and Ray's apartment, and Ray is holding the statue like it's a goddamn Oscar.
Yeah.
Like he's admiring it. Like, yes.
They never come out and say he stole it, but I think we know he stole it. Right.
Well, I think it was like a post maybe a month or so ago in the Seinfeld subreddit. People are like saying, wait, they never really answered it. Do you think he stole it? And I think a resounding yes. Because it makes no sense. Yeah.
He definitely stole it.
Like that one, that scene right there kind of shows like he's like, yeah, I won kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, to the victor go the spoil. So he goes to a banging at the door, and while he's holding the Oscar,
yeah,
in his winning moment or whatever you could say, he's banging at the door, and it's Kramer. He's yelling, "Police, open up!" He's like, "Police!" So Kramer bursts through the door. He's in his Joe Friday getup.
Yeah, wearing Grandpa's clothes.
Yeah. He's got his dragnet, Joe Friday style. Just the facts, ma'am. And he goes like, "Freeze, mama!" And then he pins the guy against the wall. Spread him. He's you're wanted for burglary, grand larceny, and murder. Murder, yeah. And he's like, just. And he like pins him against the wall. And the guy,
make love to the wall, pervert.
Just make love to that wall. Yeah. He's like, are you a cop? Yeah, I'm a cop. I'm a damn good cop. He yells at him. He says, you're very lucky here, because when he sees the statue, puts it in his bag. He's just got a lot of great lines in this one part here.
This is one of the best Kramer scenes.
Freeze mama. That's so good. The guy's shaking. He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He's like, good, let's keep it that way. And he just slinks out the door.
Yeah. The whole thing.
So he pretty much never got a good look at Kramer, which is great because he's the one character in the Jerry crew that Ray never saw.
Yeah.
Saw George, saw Jerry and Elaine, obviously. Yeah. But Kramer, he's no idea who Kramer is, no idea. And so it's great. He basically just got robbed.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and then he goes back into Jerry's apartment, and Kramer's, corralling everybody in, and he's like, what, Kramer? And he brings out a bag, and then boom, sets the statue. George is ecstatic. He's like, oh my God, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel happy. Like, it's almost like George, hasn't been happy. I keep saying Jerry and George. But George, he's like saying that, it's like he hasn't been happy. He's like, oh my God, I don't know how I'll repay you. Then Kramer just smacks him. Oh, we'll think of something. Smacks George right in the back, and George drops the statue.
It's like George just 30 seconds of happiness.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So they don't show it in the show, but it's like Kramer would have still brought up that George owes him.
Yeah.
A favor, a dinner, something. George would still owe him. Because I did get the statue. You dropped it.
Yeah. No, George got to tell his mom that he got it back and he broke it again.
He essentially got George dropped it, but because of Kramer patting him on the back. So, but it was George. So Kramer's probably like, well, you still owe me a favor.
Yeah.
So that was great. And it does actually, one more little stand-up bit at the end there. It's, what Jerry talking about how everyone has their own, personal security things that they do. It's like, a way to thwart the thieves. Yeah. Nobody likes getting stolen from, but you think, you're one step ahead. It's like how he talks about, like, you're at the beach and you have your shoes. So you put your wallet and your keys at the bottom, at the very tip of the toes of the shoes. You don't put it where the heels are, because, thieves are just going to walk by like, their wallet in there? Nope. Only heels down, gone. Bye.
Yeah. So, in line with this, my grandmother, now I hope no one listens and goes, I'm going to rob Andrew's grandmother. I know where to find her jewelry. She went on vacation and she took her expensive jewelry and she put it in a TV dinner box and put that TV dinner box in her freezer so that if anyone broke in her house, they wouldn't find her jewelry unless they looked in the freezer and opened up a TV dinner box and found her jewelry. So that was her hiding place for her jewelry when she went away. So she came back and
I do like that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Except it's my grandmother, and she forgot where her jewelry was. So she called the police and said she was robbed. Filed a report, did the whole thing. Like, there's no point of entry. There's nothing else broken unless someone stole her jewelry. And it was like at least a month. And then she went to make a TV dinner one day and she goes, oh, there's my jewelry.
Oops.
So, yeah.
Call off the
off the search.
I mean, it's the hiding in plain sight kind of thing. The idea. Yeah. It's like Kyle did get me, like, he worked at like a hardware store and they had these like little like storage things that you could put, I don't know, money or keys or weed or whatever. Like one is a Dr. Pepper can and you unscrew the top and then it's like container.
Oh yeah, I saw those. Like Clorox and stuff, yeah. Yeah.
And then I got a Barbasol one because he's like, Kyle got it for me because, looks like the one from Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want
so I do. I have a Barbasol one that I keep some cash in because I mean, not like a lot of money. So I have this thing where I'm like, to save money, put money aside obviously I have a savings account, but if I have cash and every time I get a $5, I don't spend it. I just put it aside.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have a little Barbasol can full of 5s.
Someone's going to come to your house and rob you. And
so if you want to rob me and you see a Barbasol can, take that.
Yeah, Brian's all hairy. I'm like, what happened to you? I'm like, I can't shave. Someone stole my Barbasol. I got this can of $5 bills though.
So I'm gonna take this can of $5 bills. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the I can understand your grandmother's.
Yeah, no,
hidden in plain sight.
It's
like
just
nobody's
hilarious
gonna
that
go
she
there.
forgot about it.
They're gonna go through the drawers. They're gonna go through a safe or whatever, looking for money. But just
You're not
TV
going to open
dinner.
boxes in a freezer,
Unless somebody was like getting a hungry man, they're like, all right, while they're in the house.
They're so tired from looting, they getting hungry. They got to eat something.
Oh, I need my calories to steal. I have this thing where I do put my wallet and keys in my glove box if I'm going to the gym. Okay. I don't want to carry a big old thing of keys around.
Yeah.
While I'm at the gym, so I'll just keep a key and then put the rest just in, and then wallet's not very big, but I just don't want to keep all this shit in there. So I'll keep my phone on me, and then my earbuds or whatever. So what big brain here, I put it in the glove box because
look in the glove box.
Well, so only reason somebody would break into my car is if on the seat they saw a wallet with a $1 bill. All I have is I have $1 on there currently, or a set of keys. They're like, oh man, if I don't see any of those things, they're like pushing up against the glass, looking in. Yeah, I don't see them. There's no reason to break into here.
Yeah,
then they move on.
Yeah,
not because my truck is a big old piece of shit that they're like, Jesus Christ, let's break in and leave like $30.
No one's going to look in the windows to see your wallet.
Yeah, exactly. So. But I that's what I got out of that. I'm like, oh yeah, and they're like, move on to the next vehicle. Nothing going on here.
Yeah.
And even if they did, it'd be more of an inconvenience to get my keys replaced or get a new wallet, which I think the wallet's worth more than any of the money that I got in my bank account at the moment.
I checked those wallets out, and you were probably true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a little funny gag at the end there. Yeah, that was I think. Definitely a fun one. I like this one a lot.
I enjoyed this episode. It had a couple. Usually, there's kind of one throwback from the beginning to the end, but Kramer gathering the clothes from Jerry's grandfather and then wearing them at the end for the
his getup. He's like Joe Friday.
And then when Jerry said, "Shouldn't you be on ledge somewhere?" to Ray, then Elaine said to her later on the elevator, like, "Shouldn't you be on a ledge somewhere?" And that's kind of when their fight was heating up.
That's
right?
when, yeah.
And then the smoking. It was the smoking something right from the beginning. I was like, that's. Felt uncomfortable, but then that played off in the end to her character. She's
just getting more inconsiderate and more. She's just agitated more because people are asking her about it.
Yeah. So instead of just trying to get the punchy jokes in, they're creating more of a story in the episodes.
A little bit more of a dynamic or depth in some of the writing.
Yeah.
Except for my plot holes that I pointed.
Yes, we'll have to fill those holes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So, I guess we're going to head on out of here. But, yeah, check us out on Twitter, YouTube, and then make sure to subscribe on wherever you're listening to this. Subscribe. And I think on Spotify and Apple, you can leave reviews. So give us a review, hopefully 5 stars.
Yes.
And then, I think that's it.
And write a review, and I'll make Brian read it to you.
There you go. We'll read it on the air.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it was a fun one. We will see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye now.
Bye.